Brad from Pro Wrestling Junkies, and welcome to another episode of Toilet Side Wrestling Talk. Today's guest hails from the great state, to some, of New York, and began wrestling in 2001 for such promotions as Victory Pro Wrestling World 1, Warriors of Wrestling, East Coast Wrestling Association, Capital Wrestling, Limitless, to name a few. Along the way, he's held the ECWA Unified Heavyweight Championship, the Warriors of Wrestling Tag Team Championship, and the Pro Wrestling World 1 Heavyweight, as well as the TV Championships. He's shared the ring with the likes of Tim Morrison, Mr. Tibbs, Sonny Kiss, Homicide, Paul London, Max Caster, to name a few. So, standing at 6 feet tall, 7 inches, weighing in at 635 stone, the masculine marvel, the Colossal Mike Law. Hey, Mike, how are you?
We're good, man. We're good. Thanks for having me. It's funny that I'm a lot smoother than people give me credit for when it comes to this whole wrestling thing. I'm just watching the video. I don't watch a lot of my own stuff, but I'm impressed with myself.
Yeah, you look just like the guy in that video we just watched.
Eerily similar, I would say, Brad. Eerily similar to the guy that we just watched.
So, can I call you Mike, or would you prefer me to call you Mr. Law? Whatever makes you comfortable.
Mike works. It's my birth name, so by all means.
Okay, let's go with Mike. So thank you for coming on, especially in the evening on a weeknight, school night. So obviously, we're living in COVID times. Have you picked up any hobbies, or more importantly, television shows in this last 9 months?
I've been religiously watching the Cobra Kai series over. I cannot I can't be any more adamant that even if you're not a fan, if you maybe watched the second and third one, the third one was good, the second one was not.
Yeah.
But if not, I urge you to watch it. It's very well put together, very well written. I've picked up a lot more on reading. I know it sounds boring, but
No.
I like to read and keep myself informed.
Sure.
A lot more. It's not a hobby as much as it's more of a side hustle, but just investing my money. Investing has been something that I've definitely delved into a lot more. And I wish more people kept an eye out as far as, especially in our industry, in the wrestling industry. I feel like there's not a lot of information or a lot of knowledge being instilled as far as saving up for retirement and stuff like that.
Yeah.
A crazy thing that a pro wrestler would think about, but I think about that on that end as well.
Do you see a lot of guys or females who aren't don't manage their money well?
I think unfortunately the history of our business and our industry has kind of shown that, and listen, I've been there where, I've been in positions where, oh man, the money's never going to end. You're like, oh yeah, let's go grab the best steak we can. Or you always think the money is always going to be coming in. And, I think myself, and I'm sure there's plenty of others that could attest to it, that's not always going to be the case. There comes a time where, maybe the money isn't going to come in as much as it did previously. And I think if you prepare yourself and be diverse with everything, your investments, with the way you handle money, that it doesn't have to end like Randy the Ram. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
You
yeah,
don't
yeah, yeah.
like that guy. And I've seen it just from guys that I've talked to that have been up there, and I see them in the past having to do the indies, not because they wanted to, but probably because they had to. And I don't, I don't. I love pro wrestling with all my heart. This is what I do. It's my industry. I love this, this sport, this business. But like you don't want to be one of those guys that has to do it because you have to. You want to do it eventually, make enough money that you do it because you still love what you're doing. You still have value that you bring to the table,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just one of those things where it's not going to be the detriment to, like, okay, am I going to be paying my rent next week? Like.
Yeah, yeah. So do you watch wrestling the same way you did as, say, when you were a kid? Like, can you like kind of let yourself go and enjoy, like, if you're just watching someone else's match, or are you like looking for things, like critiquing it in your mind?
No, I've managed to just let that escape, man. I know a lot of people. It's different across the board. Me personally, I can still be a fan of something and be like, if it's so outlandish that it takes me out of the moment, maybe I'd be like, oh, it's just like that takes me out. Like, I can't get back into the
Sure, sure.
situation and scenario. But for the most part, I try to drop it and watch it as a fan because that's what I came up as. I came
Mm-hmm.
up as a fan. Everything else that led to me actually being in an industry was it was if I weren't a fan first, I would never have gotten to any point in trying to get into the industry. So I have to watch it in my mind at this point as a fan, and then if it's something where someone's like, what are your thoughts on this? Then I could probably break it down a little bit better as an actual wrestler or performer.
So I want to circle back before I forget about this. I've become a huge Johnny Lawrence fan, from before I even heard, when I heard about the show. We finished season 3 last night.
Okay.
It's an amazing show. I'm so sad that I have to go find something else to watch tonight.
We were saying that in my household. I was like, man, we were trying to say, okay, maybe we'll watch 3 or 4 episodes, but it became so addictive. And
Yeah, yeah.
Wow, how the name of the actor escapes me at this point. But Johnny Lawrence, the guy who plays Johnny Lawrence, William, I forget his last name.
Okay.
He is like the best part of that show. I mean, he kind of just
Awesome.
a raw, like, unfiltered mentality of what it was. Like, he's still living in the 80s in a sense.
Yeah, yeah, totally.
He still has that mentality, and it's weird because in this modern time in 2021, like, it feels like such a refreshing point of view. Even though, like, I grew up in the 80s, so I know what it's like, but like, people who don't, like, to them it's like, oh, this is badass, and I think to bring that whole point across. And I am sad as well, Brad, I'll be honest.
Yeah, totally. The fight scenes are insane, but
Right.
like, I hope the guy who plays Johnny Lawrence, I hope like he's making some good money from this right now, like, because you hadn't heard about that guy in 25, 30 years. And so I'm glad like his career revived. I hope he's getting like a nice little latent career bonus. But
Yeah, I know that him, along with a few of the other Cobra Kai originals, were
Mhm.
doing, like, the conventions and stuff like that.
yeah,
Like, they did their thing, but again, anytime it just, it goes back to also wrestling, man. You just never know. Like, there's no time frame, no time stamp to know when someone's gonna hit their stride. You know what I mean? Like, it's the littlest opportunities that it's up to you as the wrestler, as the actor, as a performer to make it something that
sure.
that small period. And I give William, Johnny the credit he deserves. And speaking of LaRusso, I would say that, like, if this doesn't expose the LaRusso family for being such shit stirs, then I don't know what to tell you. They're
Totally.
troublemakers.
Oh, they totally are. Like, they're kind of like villain-ish. They don't know that, but like, anyways, it's
We're
not
getting-
real. I'm like getting pulled into it. I'm getting aggravated. Let's go back. This I wanted to ask you. Do you know any wrestlers or coming up training that weren't wrestling fans?
You know, I mean, anyone that I worked with, not, I mean, I'm not going to take any credit for anyone who I helped train, but I will say that when I helped train a few places that I've gone to, if they weren't fans of this business, if they weren't fans of wrestling, they didn't last. I think
Oh, okay.
I think we're living in a day and age where like the NXTs, the AEWs, WWEs are quite well aware as to who's a fan of what this is and who isn't. And listen, it doesn't, you could be just a naturally gifted, you could just be a naturally gifted athlete, and it's like, okay, I can really do this. I was never a fan, but I became a fan because it's just such a cool experience. It's a high that you can never get from anything else. I can sink my teeth into this, or you're just a genetic freak that just happened to get the call from one of the major companies. Those exist, I'm sure, but I will say for the most part, you'd have to be a fan of this somehow to put your body to what we put our bodies through.
Yeah, I guess that's true. So let's go back to when you were little, Mr. Law. Were you? I know now you're 6'7" and 635 stones in print, but
right.
Were you a small child?
I was actually I was a heavier child. I was like 10 pounds when I was born.
Oh, really? Wow.
I was colossal on the way.
Totally.
But I think the whole idea behind Colossal and the idea of who I am is I always carried myself as a larger person, and it goes back to, listen, man, I had a Napoleon complex.
Yeah, that's what I was getting at.
Because I was always tougher than I always knew that I was just a tough person. I was smaller, so I had to always kind of prove myself. And whether it was like football or anything like that, I always make sure that I always gave everyone a hard time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
When I was in fights, I would always go after the bigger kids. I always went after the bigger kids in any fight, because I had something to prove, man. I just wanted to show that I could be this big tough guy, and obviously as I got more mature, I don't go around doing that anymore. But that was my Napoleon complex. I always felt like I was a big dude. I always held my chest out and my shoulders up, and I just carried myself like I was this gargantuan individual.
Did you have siblings?
Yeah, I have 3.
Okay.
One sister and 2 brothers. I have an older brother and then the 2 other younger.
Now, did they kind of like my brother beat the crap out of me all the time, and it made me tougher. Did you get that? Where they prepared you for being out in the world amongst youth?
My older brother and I would just constantly fight, fist fight.
Oh, okay.
It was crazy. I remember he gave me he left a lump on my freaking eye one time because he just, it makes him sound like he's an evil person. We actually are best of friends,
Oh no, that's fine. I know how it is.
He stomped my head until I my eye, my.
Yeah.
But we were kids, and I definitely think it prepared me because I had an older brother who here's the thing, I'm one of the more lax of all of us. My older brother would always be willing to throw down. My sister was always willing to throw down. I'm more of a let's before we throw down, I don't have a problem throwing down if we have to.
Yeah.
But it was never, after a while, after getting into so many fights in school, I just I don't know, I think one day I just said, I don't know why I'm doing this. I'm just getting into fist fights for no reason. And then I was like, it's better to just talk it out for the most part.
Did your sister, did you ever say to your sister, I don't know her name, that's fine, so-and-so, that really hurt? Did that ever come out of your mouth? Did she ever physically hurt you in a fist fight? Or getting into it with a sister, I mean.
No. But her and I never like we would get in arguments, but never it was never like a thing where we came to blows. I just
Okay.
that's something they never instilled. My older brother and I, we fought like crazy. That's just another conversation. We were doing UFC fights before that was a thing.
Can I tell a quick story? I know this is not about me, but I was very little. My brother was he's 3 years older, a little bigger. But my mom would go to work, and on winter break, I remember like putting on boxer shorts and a robe and winter gloves, and we'd introduce each other. And he hit me so hard in the chest that I just kind of like crumpled down, and we never boxed again. But okay, enough about me.
No.
Did you get suspended a lot in high school? Did you get suspended for fighting?
So I went to. I mean, this is probably gonna like look bad on them, but I went to Christ the King High School in Middle Village, Queens, and that might as well have been a public school. And again, this is probably like shitting on the public schools, but
whatever.
Like, what I mean by that is like they really they were so lax with things. You know what I mean? Like I felt like I was, if there was a fight breaking out, the fight was gonna break out. I saw plenty of them. I broke a kid's nose, which I thought that was going to get me expelled. I wasn't worried about because the other guy was going to try to beat me up eventually.
Yeah.
I wasn't worried about that. I was worried about what was going to tell my mom and dad that I got for breaking a kid's nose, even though he started with me. I started seriously punching me for no reason in biology class. I didn't get suspended for fighting. I got suspended because for tardiness, for lateness, I think it was.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting set of priorities they had.
Well, because what happened was I was every time you got 3 latenesses, they considered it an absence, and so it was so repetitive that they were like, okay, we're just going to suspend you. So it was like in-school suspension, which is. They literally put us in what they call the blue room. It's a small ass room which is colored blue like this. I mean, it's the opposite of the color of this, obviously. But, and it was just I didn't pick up any redeeming value as to why this was happening and what sense this made. It was so stupid.
You didn't learn a lesson from sitting in this blue room.
No. These dudes were cracking each other's necks. I thought that was the oddest things. They would do this thing where if they were. I forget vaguely, but I remember vaguely, I should say, where if one of them got the answer wrong to the question they had, they would just crack the other dude's neck. I swear, I remember thinking
is there someone monitoring the students?
No, they would come in. So they would lock up. They would put us all in a blue room with a desk. We would all sit there with nothing. We would just sit there, and occasionally they would have a dean come in just to check, make sure there was no bloodshed. But other than that, we were left at our own discretion, and I just think this is so stupid. No one, I don't get how anyone's learning anything from this.
Did they make you come to school a little later and leave a little earlier so you could see the other students who weren't suspended? Because that happened to me.
It was something. I mean, it's so far back. There was something along those lines, but I remember I wasn't able to attend class. So here's the stupidity of it all. So we're paying for this tuition because Catholic school, private school, yet you're suspending me because I was tardy, and which made me miss some of the other classes. Now your in-school suspension is now allowing me to miss even more classes.
Yeah, you're falling behind. All right. Do you remember the moment you just said to yourself, "I'm picking up the phone or I'm going online and finding a trainer"?
A trainer?
Was there a all of a sudden you said, "I'm doing this tomorrow morning. I'm making this call"?
I was at let's say an outlaw show, because that's what it was, in New York in 1998, I think it was. And it was an outdoor block party show, and it had Homicide was there. Even though
cool.
Yeah, that's where I first met him, and I mean, he's not going to remember that because I barely, remember.
Sure.
But him and a few other guys were there, and my uncle was a referee for this promoter that was running that specific show. My uncle ran into a actual legitimate problem with one of the other wrestlers a few years back.
Okay.
decided to take a Heineken bottle and break it over my uncle's head during the match, not telling him he was going to do it. He just cracked him over
Like a real glass, like a
real
glass
Heineken bottle. Yeah, he assaulted him with a Heineken bottle, and he busted my uncle wide open, and that was the end of it for my uncle as far as his wrestling endeavors and being a referee. He's a fan for life. He's a fan.
Yeah, yeah.
But
did anyone jump into the ring and like?
No, because I gotta realize
attend to it.
When this happened, this was probably in the mid to late 80s.
Okay.
And so it was a wrestler who had my uncle was reffing the match, and he had, I guess, heat with this guy. Something must have went awry in the back, and this guy said, "All right, well, I'll see you out there." And the referee's there to officiate, make sure that everyone's safe, whatever the case may be, and he just popped him over the head with a Heineken bottle out of nowhere, and that was it, and he had stitches and whatnot, and he introduced me, my uncle introduced me to his promoter, Pedro Rodriguez, and from there, I was 15 years old, man. I didn't make the wrestling team in high school, and I was bummed out, but I wanted to be a wrestler, and I was like, I always loved pro wrestling, and I was like, okay, maybe if I train for a few years, I could, do this. And I started training at 15 and a half years old.
And your parents were cool with that?
No.
Okay. Let's hear about that.
My dad, see, my parents were always supportive, but they weren't, my mom especially, got rest her soul, wasn't a big proponent of it. Like my whole family, her father, who died the year I was born, was a mega fan. He loved pro wrestling. So they loved it, but they didn't want to see. She certainly didn't want to see her 15-year-old son get in the ring.
Yeah.
In 1998, you have to realize, like, there weren't guys. You see the independents now. You see the wrestling scene now. There's a lot of small guys. And when I started, that was like not seen. All the guys were 300 pounds, 250 pounds, solid muscle, and they didn't want to. They would destroy. Like I would get in the ring and get the shit kicked out of me for like hours.
Yeah.
And that's what it was, but my parents were always supportive. I think my mother, as I progressed and started to get more notoriety, she saw stuff, in either magazines or stuff like that. She was like, oh, okay, and she saw that I wasn't, that I had all my mental capacities and everything.
Yeah.
She wasn't as scared of for me as she was back then.
Were you able to sleep the night before your first training session?
Yeah, I remember always feeling very nauseous because I lived in Long Island at that point, and the training facility, it was a broken down church in over in Bed-Stuy, Brooklyn, which is like totally different than what it was now or what it was then. But I was nauseous, man. I was like feeling like antsy, and I was like, oh my God, I don't know what I'm getting myself into. And I remember getting.
You didn't have a driver's license even at that point,
right? No, my
right?
dad had to drive me. My dad had to drive me for the first 2 or 3 years that I went to go train.
Oh my God.
And that was like 2 hours away. That was like, people talk about, this place is 4 hours, or not 4 hours, like an hour away. Like this was 2.5 hours, away from where I lived. But I just wanted to train, man. I wanted to be a wrestler, and I would come in and I would get the daylights beaten out of me, and I just wanted to prove to not only, myself, but to the guys there who, thought I was just going to be a one and done kind of person.
Yeah.
That I was going to tough it out, and it was both a physical and it was a mental challenge to continue that.
Were you coming home, especially in these first few days, like bruised or limping, and your mom looks at you and like, why are you doing this to yourself?
Absolutely. Brad,
okay.
I cannot tell you how many times I would come home either limping, or I remember the first training session that I went to in Arena, Puerto Rico in Brooklyn. They hung me. I tell the story a lot, but it's because it's just how it's changed. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
You never get away with that stuff now, and I don't think it makes sense to do it anyway. But they hung me upside down. They took my shirt off, and they just proceeded to just chop away at my chest and my I had like prints all over. You know what I mean? I had like all sorts of welts on my
Had you
chest.
seen this happen before? Like,
No,
oh my God.
I was too green. I didn't know. You know what I mean? I didn't know. You know, in retrospect, you know, of course, I would never put somebody through that.
Yeah.
I don't look at it like, oh my, well, you know, what was me? Like, hey,
Uh-huh.
that's what it was at the time. You know, and they were training people to be physically tough because this is a physically, you know, tasking business. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
to me, I had to build it in myself that okay, it sucks, it hurts, but you know what? I'm gonna come back, and I'm gonna come back and show everyone here that I'm here to stay, man. You know, you could try to bully me, you could try to, you know, like try to shoot on me, you can try to like chop me as many times, but you know, I was not gonna be denied. You know, and that's my mentality. That's always been my mentality.
And so, when did you start? Like, at what point during in training, like, do you start thinking about like your character and your attire?
I
Is
think
that part of the training?
it's changed, Brad, so much. It wasn't now like I say a lot of people are fortunate because it's so systematic now and in a good
Mm-hmm.
way where
Okay.
you know you're trained on the different perspectives of what it takes to be successful in the wrestling industry. We didn't
Mm-hmm.
have that in 1998. If any of the independent guys came in, it was pretty much if they didn't see anything in you, it was like, all right, well, you're a test dummy, and I'm going to use you to see what I can do and what I can get
Uh-huh.
away with. So there was no aspect of like, okay, this is what your persona is going to be. I didn't
Mm-hmm.
think about the idea. Like, I know you referenced Masculine Marvel. I literally came up with that on the fly at a show in Long Island. Like, they're
Uh-huh.
like, oh, what's your name? And I was like, oh, let me think of something, you know, to come based off of my name at the time, which was Sabotage. That's the name I had come up
Yeah.
for myself for a few years, um, and that just happened. That was all myself and my mom were thought that was true. You know, they didn't really put that in your head. They wanted you to pay your dues. They wanted you to train. They wanted you to be tough. They wanted you to learn how to shoot. They want you to.
Mm-hmm.
There was different things they wanted you to train before you got into the idea of having merch or characters, stuff like that.
Yeah.
You know, it was it was weird because even at that time it was looked down upon. Like everyone who knows me knows I carry so much merch. Like I have
Uh-huh.
shirts, I have fanny packs, I have we're gonna be coming out with bobblehead dolls, all that stuff.
Cool.
That stuff in 1998 would have, if you would have come out with your own shirt and you had worn your own shirt in 1998,
Totally.
you got your ass kicked because they're like,
Uh-huh.
who the hell does this guy think he is? You know what I mean?
Uh-huh.
And that was kind of the mentality that was within that time frame in the early 2000s. You know, now it's just so much more, again, systematic in a very positive way that
Mm-hmm.
they train you. Okay, this is what you got to turn the fundamentals. This is what you got to learn as far as your character, like who you are. And Colossal is literally the same. It's that boy that
Mm-hmm.
took on four people in a football game and wouldn't go down. You know what I mean? That kid
Uh-huh.
who went after Daryl Vaughn, if you're out there, who was Daryl Vaughn was almost 300 pounds. He could have squashed me like a fly, but I went and fought him because that was, you know what I mean? That the Colossal, the persona of who that is really just me, as it should be, turned
Yeah.
up 1,000%. You know, I truly believe I am this larger than life
And
character. I do believe that I'm this huge, like, persona. You know.
yeah, So did you think to yourself, okay, I'm ready for my first match, and say to your trainers, I'm ready for my first match, or did they come to you and say, you're ready?
Yeah, back then, I mean, that's another thing. I mean, I don't know how it is now, how the schools handle it now, but if anyone,
Uh-huh.
a trainer said, hey, I think I'm ready for my first match, they would make sure they put you in with the legitimate toughest dude that you could find, and that
Uh-huh.
would test that you really weren't.
Oh,
You don't realize, like, I mean, I don't know, like, you, Brad, but in general, people don't realize how fucking tough it was back in that time frame. And I had it easy. Like, I'd be like, oh man, that sounds like brutal. And guys are getting dropped on their head all the time in training. Guys are getting concussions in training, and they made you take 1,000,000 falls and bumps.
uh-huh.
That was easy. I've heard worse stories. But as far as that is concerned, going back to your question, Brad, they told they said, hey, okay, this is a family show that we're running. We're gonna give you tickets, because it's for
Hmm.
the home promotion that I started at.
Sure.
Get these out, sell them, and then you'll have your first match with one of the other students. And that's how it went. You know what I mean? Like behind the scenes, it was if you at a year in or 2 years in had the audacity to be like, yeah, I'm ready, coach. I mean, they made sure that you rescinded that pretty quickly.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my gosh. So, was there a point like you had your first match, you start wrestling? Was there a point where you're in the ring, and you're like, oh, I'm pretty good at this? Like, was there like a moment that clicked for you?
I always thought I was terrible.
Oh, okay.
For
So
the
there.
longest time. I I I learned so much, and I'm grateful for the guys who trained me. But I was very naive, and I was very stubborn about a
Hmm.
lot of things. I should, and I tell this to a lot of people, especially young guys. Don't make the same mistake. I made so many mistakes coming up.
Hmm.
I stuck around the wrong people. I didn't network. Just stuff like that. But I also
Yeah.
didn't listen to the people that I should have listened to, and I have to accept that as completely, utterly my fault. Um, I
Did it
there were
set
rules
you
that.
back at all?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Did it set your like career back at all?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Okay.
There's no reason, like people, and I appreciate all the support, and I always appreciate it, and I'll continue doing
Sure.
it as long as I can, because not only do I have people who believe in me, but I believe in myself. But I ultimately made a lot of errors in judgment coming up,
Hmm.
and I stopped, and you got to put yourself in this full time, in the sense that you have to give it your all. You can't just be like half in, half out, in the sense
Uh
that,
huh.
okay, I'm gonna do this for a year or a few months, and if things don't go the way I want them to, which it always never does, I'm
Yeah.
just and I'm gonna pack my stuff, and that's I did a lot of that, especially when I was coming up. I would get frustrated, and I had no direction. I had no mentorship really after a while, and I kind of tried to do a lot of it on my own, and it
Hmm.
doesn't work that way, man. You have to have people to kind of say, hey, you're doing this wrong. No, dummy, don't do that, or like stuff like that. And after a while,
Yeah.
I just didn't have that. I just kind of did my own thing, and you know, going back to what you were saying before, ultimately, I didn't. Even now, I'll see stuff that I do, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, that's so your footwork is off. You know what I mean? Like, anyone who knows me know I'm almost a perfectionist when it comes to these things, and I don't like
Uh-huh.
putting anything out there. As far as clips, if I see a little thing off, I'm not gonna put it up. And even when I put stuff up, I'll look, and people are like, oh, that looks awesome. And I'm like, like it's not up to the capabilities that I know that I'm capable of achieving. And so, yeah, I've held myself back to that end, but I refuse to kind of just put anything out there. And it took me a long time to be like, oh, I am good at this. I'm watching that video earlier. I go, hey, man, I'm not that bad.
Yeah, I don't have a hype video. No one like does a hype video for me walking my dog or watching TV with my kids. So that's pretty good, you know. Do you have? Are you in a relationship? I'm not
Yeah.
coming on to you. I'm just
No, 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 no. I mean, I don't discuss my private life because I keep it
fine.
private. I mean,
Sure.
I prefer it, but I appreciate
My question was going to be: is it take a lot of work to maintain relationships with your family and friends, like when you're on the weekends wrestling or when there's not a COVID?
it's difficult for everyone. You know what I mean? Like I remember one time I missed my goddaughter's birthday, and I got hell for that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the way it is, as time progresses, you kind of learn what's important and what's like. To me, it's always important to be a person of your word. So for
Hmm.
me, if I said I was going to be at an event and I double booked myself because I'm an idiot, then that's on me. Then I deserve to get like ripped apart for it. I've always tried to do right by everybody. Like, don't get it wrong, don't get twisted. Like, I made up for it, my goddaughter not being out. Like,
Yeah.
that she was taken care of. But stuff like that, like you miss certain weddings, stuff like that. Like, it as you progress and you start to see, okay, what's a great opportunity, and what's just another like chance at like getting in the ring. You know what I mean? Like you kind of
Uh-huh.
see the positive and negatives. Like as far as, okay, am I really gonna miss, my father's birthday? You know what I mean? Or my cousin or my aunt's, or cousin's wedding.
Yeah,
Or
yeah.
so that's probably not gonna do much for me at this juncture of my career.
Mm-hmm.
But and I think that's one of the things where, I think somebody may have gotten it twisted at one point. Where like, oh, you're retiring, or no, why? I feel great. It's
Yeah.
I'm being more selective as to where I wrestle, because I think after a while you kind of have to make sure that the value of what's bringing back, it has to be a relationship, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like I'm giving them a value, but they're bringing a value back to my brand, and so I kind of have to see it that way sometimes these days.
Sure. All right. What would you say is the do you still love getting in the ring in wrestling?
Absolutely.
Is it difficult? Like, do you do all your booking, or does someone do that for you? I mean, is it hard to like juggle all of that in addition to working in the ring?
I mean, if anything, it makes you more prepared, because
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to multitask. You know what I mean? And that means like, it's not just like, and I tell promoters this all the time. You're not just getting me as the individual. You're not only getting the brand of Colossal Mike Law, but
Mm-hmm.
you're getting the promos, you're getting the social media aspect of it. There's a lot that engulfs what I'm gonna bring to you as a.
Sure.
We're no longer just like pro wrestlers. You know what I mean? Like I know
Mm-hmm.
it's like, to a lot of old school people, it's like, oh, don't say that. And I completely, as a guy who came up in the late '90s, I totally get it. But
Uh-huh.
we're a brand, and what we do now,
Yeah.
we have to be able to hit on all points. And I'm not just talking about the wrestling ring aspect, because that's important right here,
Mm-hmm.
but also the idea of like, okay, I have to have a hype promo, I have to have a vignette, I have to have, you know, I have to be able to promote this stuff on social media. Social media is such a huge
Mm-hmm.
part of what we do. You put it on the stories, you put it on Instagram,
Yeah.
Twitter, all that stuff. So that's just it's a full time business, and we are our
Yeah.
own businesses. So I have no problem with that, because any money that comes in is to support my business.
Sure. Okay. I'm not going to keep you much longer.
Hey,
Um.
Brad, by the way,
Huh.
awesome interview. I really have
Oh.
been enjoying this.
Oh, good. That's nice to hear. Do you hear that, all haters? At least one
There you
person
go,
likes
Brad.
me.
I'm loving. I'm digging this, man.
All right, good. I have. Can I ask you 5 random yes or no questions?
Please do.
Okay. They're not wrestling related.
Mm,
Have you ever paid money directly to a pimp?
no, well, who does
Okay.
that? Come on, now.
Yeah,
Cash,
no, I know. That's
cash.
unprofessional. And this, you have a good relationship. Would you ever consider a career in animal cloning?
Only if there's like it involves chimpanzees and orangutans. Those are my favorite.
Oh, yeah, because they're almost like human.
Right.
They're like a better 5-year-old, you know? Okay.
98 percentile here in
Yeah, totally.
people is all I'm gonna say.
For $22,500, would you only eat matzah for 2 years in place of any type of bread product?
Yeah, I can deal with that. I'll work with that.
Okay. Have you ever cheated a child out of money?
No, but children have cheated me out of money.
Oh, so they have it coming. Oh, nice. You have a card to play. And finally, do you believe that aliens look like us? Like not me with my big nose, but like a normal.
I don't believe they do. I think they look extraterrestrial. I don't know what that look is, but
Mm-hmm.
it's not human.
Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Mike, or Mr. Law, where are you appearing in 2021 that you can even say at this point?
I'm gonna be all over the place, and I'm gonna tell everyone that. I know last year things went a little awry.
Yeah, with that
Some
the flu.
international debuts didn't happen,
Uh-huh.
but I'm here to tell you that I'm not saying this is my year, because everyone says that. All I'm
Uh-huh.
saying is people look out tune to your TVs, tune onto the internet. Know that eventually I will be where I'm supposed to be, and that's all I'm going to leave it at.
All right, that's good to know. Just keep an eye on that, people. All right, Mike, I will be following you, of course. Thank you so much for coming on. I hope the next couple months go really well for you and you stay healthy, or at least you get vaccinated in some capacity. And hopefully you'll want to come on again.
Absolutely. You
all right.
I'll be back.
Oh, awesome. All right. Take care, Mike. It was great talking to you.
Later, Brad. Pleasure, man.
Later.